The Savannah Way stretches from Broome in Western Australia to Cairns in Queensland. There are alternative routes that can be travelled to achieve the journey. We've chosen to stick to the bitumen with our 23-foot caravan as we explore the Northern Territory section of our journey. That said, we did abandon the caravan on a number of occasions to explore off-road attractions. This section of the journey commences in Kununurra in Western Australia.
We're on the road heading east towards Timber Creek. We're actually heading towards the border to start with. This is the Victoria Highway. We have reached the state border, Northern Territory, WA. Immediately, clock changes by an hour and a half. So we've reached the state border and take the obligatory photos. Western Australia is very strict on what goes in and out of the state. So they've got their inspection area just there. On the Northern Territory side, you just drive straight through. Back on the road again after having done our border stuff. 110 in the Northern Territory unless signed otherwise. There it says 130. We're approaching the turn off to the Qd Border National Park. This is the Jarnum campground. This is the top end of the park, up here. No generators allowed. The rock structures through here are rather interesting there. This is as we drive into the first camp. Approaching the turn off to the Lagoon Highway. The road runs around the back of Lake Argyle down the Halls Creek. Head down that way towards the Zebra Creek mine.
So all the geologists agree that it's found nowhere else in the world. They disagree on how it's formed. The most plausible one for us is that it's volcanic heat and pressure, which obviously is plausible. Like our diamond mine is only 60 k's away. So what it is here, as you can see, whatever the mixture was, it just didn't form. It was like oil and water. So with the volcanic heat and pressure, it did start off as dots. And with more volcanic heat and pressure, it starts to form your lines. So the highly banded it will be, with the more volcanic heat and pressure, the less you'll see the dots forming the lines. And you can see that the two mixtures just didn't go together. And because they're a new mine, they've got loads and loads of variations. So as you can see here, so this is cut off the wire saw, and this is what they look for in the mine. So as you can see, you've got to have a keen eye to find it all. And I can show you this, obviously you can take pictures of this one. That's their most highly banded one, because a lot of people think it's sedimentary, but it's not. And if you look to this left-hand side here, yep, it's not sedimentary. Sedimentary continually flows. This always comes to an end.
They're just beautiful,
yeah,
aren't they? So what would that be worth?
To them, it's priceless. Someone offered her $400 for this and she still said no, because they literally have not got any more of this colouring. So hopefully, fingers crossed in the future, when they dig around a bit more, hopefully they can find that more colouring.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. They'd have to be very clever to actually see what that actually looks like in the raw.
Exactly, yeah. Oh. Yeah. And a lot of the pieces in the gallery, the back isn't polished, so you could see it
in the raw state.
In the raw state, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that's gorgeous.
At the Zebra Rock mine, at the store, there is a campground here as well. Camp on site and do the tours.
We're suddenly, after being in fairly flattish country for a while, and amongst these hills. We're approaching Gregory's marker. On the side of the road, not far from Timber Creek. Gregory's camp, actually. Just a few metres down the road, then is the turn off to the Gregory tree. I'll go down and we'll have a bo peep at that. The Ubirr Gregory National Park.
Some people when they're touring do it easy. I don't think that's quite so easy.
Located in Ubirr Gregory National Park, Gregory's tree is a baobab tree on the banks of the Victoria River. It is a sacred site to the Nourlangie people and is named after explorer Augustus Gregory and his party who camped near it in 1856. On July the 2nd, 1856, Baines, the expedition artist, marked the arrival and departure dates of Gregory's North Australian expedition from the base camp on the tree. An inscription on the tree also indicated where Gregory had left a letter in case the expedition team should get lost. There's another one of those 24-hour campgrounds. So this is Big Horse Creek campground. It's National Parks. Camping fees to apply here. This is 10 kilometres out of Timber Creek. It's a boat ramp, picnic area, campground up to the side. This of course runs down onto the Victoria River. First thing to note is the sign which says that crocodiles inhabit the river, so no swimming. There's your boat ramp into the Victoria River. And there, just upriver, is the Bradshaw Bridge. In 1996, the Department of Defence purchased Bradshaw Station, a large cattle property in the vicinity of Timber Creek. This land subsequently became Bradshaw Field Training Area, an 8,700 square kilometre live fire training facility. In 2002, the 270 metre long Bradshaw Bridge opened, providing road access to the training area from the Victoria Highway. Timber Creek is the only significant settlement between the Western Australian border and Katherine to the east. The Ngunnawurrung and Nourlangie Aboriginal people are the original inhabitants and traditional owners of the land surrounding the town, and the traditional name for the locality is Mamukala. There are a couple of fuel outlets near each other in Timber Creek, and you should check the pricing for any discrepancies before filling your tank.
This is Policeman's Point.
During World War II, growing concerns over a Japanese invasion of Northern Australia led to the formation of the 2nd 1st North Australia Observer Unit, a highly mobile reconnaissance unit led by local Aboriginal guides who knew the local landscape. The role of this unit, nicknamed the Knackaroos, was to report any enemy landings on isolated areas of the coastline. The unit was active in the Timber Creek and Victoria River areas and was recognised in 1998 with a memorial being built at the lookout. The 1908 police station building in the town is heritage listed and serves as a museum with local history and law enforcement exhibits. The main building was restored in the 1980s. The museum precinct includes outbuildings and grave sites. The buildings are maintained by the National Trust of Australia. Unfortunately, it was closed when we visited.
Decided to buy a Devonshire tea. I've got pumpkin scones, and Ed has the plain scones. So what do you reckon? Good stuff?
Very good.
Good?
Very good.
Oh, it's very good as well.
We're approaching the Durack Monument, which is at the top of the Bullita access track into the Gregory National Park. Let's take a little run down there and see what's down there today.
This is a replica of a Bronco rail, which was they used for branding cattle. Tie the cattle to, hold them down and brand them.
Right opposite the monument is the Bullita access track. It takes you down to Bullita Homestead. It's also part of the famed Bins track. It doesn't take long for the gravel to come up. This is quite an interesting drive through here. It's the hills are interesting. The road's not bad at the moment. It's interesting country.
So we're just driving along and there's this fence. It's just fencing off a small area here. A small marker on the fence tells us that it's an Aboriginal sacred site.
Little fella sitting in the middle of the road. Coming up on the right hand side, part of a stock route. You don't end it from this end, you end it from the other end. It's about a 90 kilometre loop. or 70 kilometres for the actual loop itself. It says no entry authorised vehicles only, but it is the end of a stock route, we believe, or an old stock route. And it's one way because there's a jump up and a couple of creeks can only be entered one way. It's part of the old Bullita stock route. They reckon that 70 kilometres takes around about 8 hours. The Tawakam track takes off to the left-hand side of the eastern side of the Bullita Road. It crosses across to the Buchanan Highway. Surprisingly and interestingly, it is not marked on any of the HEMA maps, even the Gregory National Park map, or the Topo 250. Come to a parting of the ways. Straight on is to the Bullita Homestead. The Bullita campground is to the right, as is the Bullita stock route. So we'll continue on to the Bullita Homestead to start with, and then we'll come back to the campground. Bullita is located on the banks of the East Bones River. It was an outstation for the Durack family, who were firmly linked with cattle and the opening up of interior Australia in the 1880s. The name of one of the Duracks is carved into a nearby boab tree. Cattle were taken from Bullita and Humbert River stations along the road that runs through Gregory National Park today. The interpretive display on the homestead imparts more information about outback farming life. The stockyards were built with and are still maintained using local lancewood and bloodwood. It's at this point that the Bullita stock route starts, and as we've mentioned before, it's 70 kilometres in about 8 hours. We've been running through Savannah type country pretty much for the last 70 kilometres, 75 kilometres, and now we've headed back into the Gregory National Park, surrounded by hills. Approaching the old Victoria River crossing. Before that, we're approaching the Joe Creek picnic area. Sometime in the next 10 or 15 kilometres. Really camping, so I'm assuming it's a day use only area. sized rock that's fallen off the side of the hill alongside of us. Don't particularly want that to land on top of you. Glorious. The countryside again. Get the white egg, blue justice, but it's beautiful. The Bunteen Highway is a 570 kilometre highway in the Northern Territory and Western Australia that runs from the Victoria Highway via Top Springs and Kalkaringi and then to Halls Creek, Western Australia. It was named after Noel Bunteen in 1996. Noel entered the transport industry in the early 1950s and went on to establish Bunteen Roadways, at one time considered to be the largest livestock transport company in the world. Noel and his company pioneered the use of road trains and even initially the trucking of cattle. He passed away in 1994, just before the National Road Transport Hall of Fame, a project he supported wholeheartedly and financially, opened its doors. He was inducted into the Wall of Fame in 2000. Katherine is situated on the Katherine River. It is the fourth largest settlement in the Territory and has an urban population of around 6,000. It is also the closest major town to the RAAF base, Tyndall. Beginning as an outpost established with the Australian Overland Telegraph Line, Katherine has grown with the development of transport and local industries including mining, particularly gold mining, a strategic military function with the RAAF base at Tyndall, also as a tourism gateway to the attractions of nearby Nitmiluk National Park, particularly Katherine Gorge and its many ancient rock paintings. The region is known to experience heavy flooding during the wet season. On Australia Day in 1998, a major flood devastated the town and the area was declared a national disaster. Alfred Giles established Springvale Homestead in 1879 after he drove 2,500 cattle and horses and 12,000 head of sheep from Adelaide to the site in 20 months for Dr. W.J. Brown to establish pastoral properties for him. Brown was one of the many men who believed the Territory could support large herds and supply the miners who were rushing into the newly discovered goldfields. Keeping sheep and cattle on the top end proved challenging for Giles. Initially, it was believed that cattle would be able to eat down the tall, rank tropical grasses, and then the shorter grasses suitable for sheep would thrive. This did not happen, and the north was too hot for sheep to thrive. In 1887, Brown tried unsuccessfully to sell Springvale. His venture into pastoralism in the north had been unsuccessful. Alfred and Mary Giles and their children stayed on at Springvale until 1894, when they abandoned the station. The 105-hectare low-level nature reserve got its name from the low-level bridge and the weir that were built by US troops stationed nearby during World War II. Designed to allow traffic to cross the Katherine River, the bridge stands only 6 feet above the dry season water level. It is impassable during much of the wet season, December to April, when it disappears under 40 feet of water. The reserve is a popular place to spend a relaxing day. There is a network of bicycle paths, barbecue facilities and picnic areas, or have a dip in the safe waters of the swimming hole. Fishing is permitted and the river holds barramundi, black bream and a northern snapping turtle. We're approaching Edith Falls. In 2011, Edith Falls campground was devastated by Cyclone Grant. The kiosk was destroyed and the island, which now sits in the forefront of the pool, was created from rubble deposited by floodwaters when 400 millimetres of rain was dumped on the area. The loop walk to the top pools was damaged, although they are still accessible by one of the walkways. The other track was undergoing reconstruction whilst we were there.
freshwater crocodiles here in this actual gorge system. But don't be fooled, the saltwater crocodiles, some really big salties, will live in fresh water. Saltwater crocodiles, they nest during the wet season. So if you imagine this water's up 7 metres, there's not a lot of area for the crocs to actually build their nest. Plus they prefer to build it with mud and leaves and things, and it acts a bit like a compost heap, whereas a freshie uses the sand to actually incubate the eggs. We have to shuffle boats around. There's only a small docking area.
Okay, we're now so far up the gorge and we've abandoned the boat and we're now walking over rocks up to look at some Aboriginal artefacts. The reason being that now there's no water for the boat to get through, so we now need to walk up to the next level where the water will be deep enough. We pick up another boat up there and then continue up the gorge. Meanwhile we walk up to the group up here to have a look at the artificial, or the Aboriginal artefacts.
Okay, has everyone read the signs? Yep. Oh, it saves me talking then. Red ochre is a hematite, which is like an iron oxide, basically.
So we're now on the second part of the gorge.
Also, as you take photos,
You have to check behind you before you can stand. Sorry? I said, I have to check behind you before you stand. You're going to get a lot of things in you.
and again, this is where the water is weeping through the rock. You can see it's not coming around like a waterfall, it's actually weeping through it. And again, depending on the wet season, it'll depend how long it'll rain for.
Oh, this is the best one, though.
That's looking back down the gorge just where we've come from. So this is the end of this section of water.
They said, oh, they came from
Here's their more. Listen mate, get your foot out the water, there's a snake there. You watching him?
Can anyone see it?
Yeah.
You read this? Yeah. Okay, Elton John, he wrote a song about that called The Crocodile Rock.
Go and have a look at the McDonald Airstrip from World War II.
Great track will be the last one.
And people do come in the caravan and park here, camp here. As we're talking about it, lo and behold, there you go.
McDonald Airfield was an airfield built alongside the former Northern Road, west of the Stuart Highway and north of Pine Creek during World War II. The airfield was constructed in March 1942. The runway was 6,000 feet long and 100 feet wide. The Royal Australian Air Force occupied the base on the 24th of November 1942 when the No. 54 Operational Base Unit administered the base. The airfield became an Australian Army communication camp and was abandoned in 1945.
That would be 1.6 kilometres, so a whole mile airstrip. Now we've chosen to park the van right alongside the McDonald Airstrip, and that's where we're going to camp the night. Just in from where we camp is this pile of dirt, but it's just not a pile of dirt. There's a whole heap of 44-gallon drums here, all in a big circle, filled with sand, and it's actually something like a machine gun post. So the McDonald Airstrip is actually about 5.2 kilometres in off the main road. And I suspect the road that it's on is the old Darwin Road.
The Adelaide River War Cemetery was established in 1942 following the bombing of Darwin. It was used by the Army field hospitals in the area to bury service personnel who were killed in action. Control of the cemetery was handed over to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission in 1947. The cemetery has a memorial to missing personnel serving in the area whose remains were never found. It is set on the banks of the river and is maintained with lush green lawns and floral garden beds all year round.
Town of Bachelor as we go into Lichfield National Park. This road goes down to the Rum Jungle Lake, so we'll go and have a bo peep. So this is the Rum Jungle Lake. Taking a run into the Lost City. It's about 10.5 kilometres in off the main road.
Stokes Hill Wharf is primarily a historical tourist precinct with a number of dining facilities on the wharf itself. The history of the wharf dates back to the early 1800s with the arrival of European settlers. On the 19th of February 1942, the Japanese bombed Darwin, with the wharf bearing the full force of the invasion. 235 killed, 300 to 400 wounded, 30 aircraft destroyed, 8 vessels sunk, 3 vessels grounded, 25 ships damaged. The Australian Aviation Heritage Centre is one of the major aviation museums in Australia and has an impressive presentation of aircraft and displays depicting the territory's involvement in aviation, both civil and military, from the early pioneers and record breakers through World War II and the jet age. There are 2 major displays. One is a massive B-52 bomber on permanent loan from the United States Air Force and is one of only 2 on public display in the world outside the USA. The other major display is the F-111, one of 6 F-111 aircraft which is on loan to qualified civilian historical societies and aviation museums. It is unique in that it is located where fierce air combat took place overhead during World War II. The top end of Australia sustained over 60 Japanese air raids during 1942 and 1943. Fanny Bay Jail is rich in social history and is one of the Territory's most important heritage sites. It operated as Her Majesty's Jail and Labor Prison in Darwin from the 20th of September 1883 until the 1st of September 1979. The original building comprises blocks A and B, containing 6 cells, and a kitchen and a wash house. The infirmary was added in 1887 and contains the gallows installed for the last executions held in the Territory in 1952. A separate cell block for female prisoners was added in 1928 and a watchtower, native section for Aboriginal prisoners, kitchen mess building, remand section and 2 maximum security wings were added during the 1950s.
Falling and rocking, and she gets the bath, organised, getting her bed set up, put a new bed. Haven't even discussed that. So what sort of band have you got? It's a wee anyway.
Hang on, everybody hold hands.
What, spread it around?
Well, but it does once we're in.
Alright guys, we're just going to head down the river a little bit for starters. We do have a bit of room to get the face. Watch how quick she is, so she's not going to jump for us. Watch how quick we're actually here. Yeah, well, he's about probably 5 or 6 months old now. He'll be 8 months old, probably born last week.
Up here.
On this tree, just look at the ball line. See how she can't see that eye there? You can there though. Get a high enough down the water, you'll see the leg. They're very cool jumping.
Can't miss him.
I think you've done pretty good, haven't you?
Yeah.
Let him have some food.
Training you.
Really hard to get chucked because they sort of really erratic, these sort of ones. So you got one, you won't get that. You get it.
He deserved it.
Oh, got it. Good little jumper, isn't it?
I was going to say, how many cameras is
Take the camera. Oh, that's red.
Doing it high enough to see his front leg missing.
another one? Why?
Fish wine. How old do you think he'd be?
8 years old.
Just give the bird to him. He's too old.
Yeah, but he's got to be part of the healthy active lifestyle program.
Oh, right. What, the exercise will be good for him?
Yeah, kick him over. Okay, one more. That's how high, how close you get here, right? How's that, guys? Close enough?
No. Any closer will you be in with us?
No, it's just a look at that. No, it's just a bit of a leaf up there.
Yeah, on this front.
Front leg. I think it's teasing enough, what do you reckon, guys?
Yes.
Deserve that, didn't it? How warm they are.
Together.
No, it's all there. Yeah, no, won't worry him. When the tide's out, we get it on the mud there. Can't keep it tide's too high. Get back in the boat.
Is it on your hands or? Yeah, well, yeah, we got three other guys with us, but they've gone to town, but we'll pick them up after.
Go around. Go around again. Here we go. Too quick, isn't it? No, we're going to fly. Like one of his wings. Timber red for
This is the old Humpty Doo rice fields, and they were established in 1954. And and they were abandoned in 1964. Apparently magpie geese coming over and attacking the crop every year, or the seed every year. Fogg Dam is a remnant of early attempts to produce rice on the Adelaide River floodplains. It lies within the Adelaide and Mary River floodplains, which is an important bird area. It attracts a wide range of local and migratory water birds and other wildlife, including one of the largest populations of snakes within Australia, including the water python and death adder, and includes raised observation platforms. Saltwater crocodiles move into the Fogg Dam area during the wet season when the reserve is inaccessible by people, although by the time the dry season arrives, usually only a few crocodiles remain in the wetlands, as they prefer the rivers and billabongs. From the end of March until the build-up, around the start of October is the best time to visit Fogg Dam. The Leaning Tree Lagoon is a large natural lagoon which connects with other waterways in the Adelaide River floodplain during the wet season. During the dry season, it is cut off from these waterways and becomes concentrated with wetland fauna. It is important to remember that crocodiles are present, as the Adelaide River coastal floodplain is estimated to contain the highest population density of saltwater crocodiles on Earth. Meanwhile, you can launch a boat, picnic, or just do what we did, and watch the large population of resident water birds and wallaroos. Mamukala is beautiful all year, but it's at its most dramatic in the late dry season, September to October, when thousands of magpie geese congregate to feed. An observation platform allows you to view the bird life, and a mural illustrates the seasonal changes that occur through the year. There's also a 3-kilometre walk adjacent to the wetlands. Ubirr is famous for its rock art. It consists of a group of rock outcrops on the edge of the Nardub floodplain, where there are several natural shelters that have a collection of Aboriginal rock paintings, some of which are many thousands of years old. The art depicts certain creation ancestors as well as animals from the area such as barramundi, catfish, mullet, goannas, long-necked turtles, pig-nosed turtles, rock ringtail possums and wallabies. The rock faces at Ubirr have been continuously painted and repainted since 40,000 BC. Most paintings there were created about 2,000 years ago. Some of them have been repainted right up to modern times. There are 3 main galleries of art accessible to visitors. National Park rangers, many of them Indigenous, give talks at all of these sites. From the top of Ubirr Rock there is a panoramic view of the floodplains and escarpments that is especially beautiful at sunset. Cahills Crossing is a causeway across the East Alligator River and the way into Arnhem Land from Kakadu National Park. The river is tidal up to the crossing and fresh water on the other side. At high tide, crocodiles mill around, waiting to cross over to the opposite side that they are on. Jabiru was originally built in 1982 as a closed town to house the community living at Jabiru East, near the Ranger uranium mine 8 kilometres away. Both the mine and the town are completely surrounded by Kakadu National Park. The Jabiru Town Lake provides barbecue and picnic area facilities. Swimming, however, is confined to the town's Olympic-sized pool, which is the only safe area to swim. There is also a 9-hole golf course, which is the only licensed premises for takeaway alcohol. However, only members can buy takeaway alcohol there. Visitors can consume alcohol in open containers on licensed premises. Burrangui, previously called Nourlangie Rock, is located in an outlying formation of the Arnhem Land escarpment within the Kakadu National Park. There are a number of shelters in amongst this large outcrop, linked by a 1.5 kilometre circular walk. The shelters contain several impressive paintings that deal with Aboriginal mythology. The full details of the stories connected to these artworks are known only to certain Aboriginal people, but interpretive signage is present at the art sites to assist visitors in understanding these rock art treasures. Unfortunately, the car park was full and the size of our van made it impossible to find somewhere to park to explore this area. Anbangbang Billabong lies in the shadow of Nourlangie Rock and is a good place to view a wide range of wildlife. Large numbers of waterfowl and wading birds inhabit the billabong, and many wallabies can be found grazing around the water's edge. There is a 2.5 kilometre walking trail around the billabong with many picnic areas provided. Yellow Water Billabong, Kakadu's most famous wetland, is located at the end of Jim Jim Creek, a tributary of the South Alligator River. The river system, which is the largest in Kakadu, contains extensive wetlands that include river channels, floodplains and backwater swamps. About 1/3 of Australia's bird species are represented in Kakadu National Park, with at least 60 species found in the wetlands. Whistling ducks and magpie geese are the most abundant, and all 5 species of kingfisher can be found in Kakadu. There are plenty of crocodiles in their natural habitat and buffalo on the floodplains. A huge jabiru's nest is nearby, and depending on the season, brolgas can be found dancing.
Yeah.
But,
The first birds we've seen in a month.
Pine Creek has a population of around 670 people. During construction of the overland telegraph line from Adelaide to Darwin in 1871, workers digging holes for the telegraph line found gold in the soil, triggering another Australian gold rush. By the 1890s, up to 15 mines were operating in the area, and the town's population exceeded 3,000 people. The first stage of the North Australia Railway was built between Port Darwin and Pine Creek, reaching the town in 1889, with an extension of the line south to Katherine opening in 1917. This line closed in 1976. The old railway station built in 1888 and some rolling stock remain. including locomotive NF2 built in 1877, which was restored to operational condition in 2001. Mataranka is located to the south of Katherine on the Stuart Highway. The main attraction in the Mataranka region is the Elsie National Park, which contains the beautiful Roper River and two great thermal pools, Bitter Springs at the northern end of town and the Rainbow Springs to the south. This area is the setting for Jeannie Gunn's autobiographical account of the year 1902, We of the Never Never. The park in the centre of town has statue recreations from the book and movie. The homestead, which she shared with her husband Aeneas Gunn until his death, has been reconstructed near to the Mataranka thermal pools. Bitter Springs flows at a constant 32 degrees centigrade and are still very much in their natural state. Swimmers can glide with the current downstream to view the beautiful riparian vegetation and bird life along the way. With a mask and snorkel, small fish and turtles can be seen as the water is fantastically clear. A movie based on Jeannie Gunn's book We of the Never Never was shot around Mataranka and at Pine Creek in the early 1980s. A replica of the old Elsie homestead was erected for the film at Mataranka Homestead and is a major tourist attraction reminding us of those early days. Jeannie Gunn died in Melbourne on the 15th of June 1951. In a tribute to her, the then parliamentary member for the territory, Jock Nelson, stated in part that she depicted the life, the spirit and the north as no other person has been able to do before or since. Rainbow Springs, or Mataranka Thermal Pools as it is also known, has been accessible to the public for much longer than the other areas of Elsie National Park and hence has been enhanced over time through the installation of concrete walls, staircases, boardwalks and paved areas. At Rainbow Springs the water flows at a constant 34 degrees centigrade and is also beautiful and clear and superb for swimming. That's the turn off to Roper Bar. Roper Bar is the top part of the Savannah Way that takes you around through Lemon down to Cape Crawford, Pony Dirt Road. The other way is to go down to Tennant Creek and across. And we're going to go somewhere in between. We're going to get into Daly Waters and across Cape Crawford, up to Borroloola, back to Cape Crawford, and then down to Barclay. Then we'll join the Barclay Highway. That's the plan. So what happens. This is pretty typical of much of the Savannah country that we've actually been running through here in the north. You get to rivers and creeks and things and vegetation at least definitely intensifies and the palms and paperbarks and that sort of thing. We're turning in to have a look at the World War II Gorrie Airfield. I have a personal interest in this one, and this is where my father served during the war. At one point of it anyway. The airfield at Gorrie comprised over 6,000 RAAF personnel responsible for aircraft and vehicle maintenance for the RAAF and United States Army Air Forces during World War II. A large petrol storage and bomb dump were constructed as part of the airfield. Proposed in 1942, initial construction at Gorrie was undertaken on the 15th of November of that year, and by May 27, 1943, 19 officers and 940 airmen were established at the airfield.
So if you're coming into Gorrie, when you get to the first division in the road, follow it to the right. Where we are at the moment is at the top end of the airstrip. We've decided to drop the caravan off and go and do a bit of exploring. So there's a road leads off out to the top of the airstrip. We're going to follow that back around, which should take us down to where the old work areas used to be.
What's it over there?
Just a log, isn't it?
Is it?
Lying on the ground.
No, there's a bit of concrete there.
What is there?
Yeah, over there.
So there's the car just over there. We're going to sell a fuel stump here. The remains of. Yeah, these ones won't be fuel drums.
It's interesting how those other ones had all popped up.
Just in off the track that we're on at the moment. Remains. Doorway there. Maybe uprights in the middle. And there's plenty of asbestos lying around. Even an old nail here, holding up the roof. Now this particular bit of road around here is marked with these dots. And we think that one was the second dot. We think there was one before that. So obviously all those dots are where buildings were. Armed with the map that we've got off the wall at Laramah, we're managing to find all sorts of bits of concrete and all sorts of things in the bush here.
There's another concrete pad.
Yeah. So like an old gun carrier of some sort. And on the same block, it's been turned into a wrecking yard. Someone's been having some target practice. This piece of road along here, and we're on the bottom of the loop, seems to be pretty well formed, solidly formed, probably for taking heavy trucks. We're travelling along that bottom road there. There are a number of concrete pads in this particular area, and this is a formed road, so this was probably where all the living quarters were, or administration, or something to that effect.
Oh, isn't that wallaby?
And that's spawning all the wallabies. Oh, I've seen it, yeah. Some water canals.
Yep. They're actually cute, aren't they? The faces are beautiful. They are, they're beautiful. The faces are really soft.
Just a pile of drums. More than that. Now, I guarantee that tree wasn't there back in 1942. This is actually the gun post. And so now
I can see your leg.
we've done the complete area. And we're back to where we started from at the airstrip. So with a bit of luck, there should be a caravan sitting here. It's been an interesting morning.
Very.
This is Laramah. I say pink fence, and that's obviously the Pink Panther pub. To the right, just up here.
Laramah was the railhead on the North Australia Railway during World War II. The town's original pub was 9 kilometres south in Burdham, but was moved when Laramah became the end of the railway. The 8th Australian Staging Camp, built by the Australian Army, was set up in Laramah for troops making the journey by road from Adelaide before transferring onto rail at Laramah siding for the rest of the journey to Darwin. The number 45 Australian Camp Hospital was also set up at Laramah by the Australian Army. The fuel station burnt down in October 2009, so no fuel is available in Laramah. The closest fuel available is 76 kilometres to the north at Mataranka or at Daly Waters, 100 kilometres to the south.
On the road again, Daly Waters, 88. We're approaching Daly Waters. Turn-off's 2 kilometres away from where we are now.
In 1862, John McDowell Stewart successfully crossed the continent from south to north. After breaking through the Lancewood scrub that thwarted his previous attempts, Stewart discovered fresh water. This area was given the name Daly Waters in honour of the then Governor of South Australia, Sir Dominic Daly. The telegraph line followed Stewart's route north. An original telegraph pole dating back to approximately 1878 was found out bush in 2009 and is now erected outside the pub. Fresh water was vital for droving, and Daly Waters was the last watering hole before the perilous Nourlangie stock route. When the Durack brothers drove their entire herd from Queensland to the West Australian coast, Daly Waters was a landmark stop. The cattle were rested and the men quenched their thirst. Today that tradition still stands, although caravans and backpackers have replaced the drovers and cattle. Today the pub is still a welcome destination for travellers. The pub is renowned for its service, hospitality, great food and cold beer. Memorabilia adorns the walls, from Irish football jerseys to bras. Wherever you look, there is something interesting to read or ponder its origin. The historic pub was licensed in 1938 to service passengers and crew from the nearby airfield. Daly Waters Airfield was a centre for the London to Sydney air race of 1926, a refuelling stop for early Qantas flights to Singapore, a World War II Air Force base, and more recently an operational base for joint military manoeuvres. Although the aerodrome was closed to commercial traffic in 1965, the original Qantas hangar still stands, housing exhibits of photographs and equipment from the area's aviation past. These days, the Daly Waters Aerodrome is in semi-retirement, with private aircraft, mining exploration companies and AirMed, or remote area medical services, constituting the bulk of the traffic.
Well, that was Daly Waters. We're now going to head down and head across the Carpentaria Highway towards Cape Crawford. Turn right heading out Top Springs, left out of Borroloola. Cape Crawford. 23 kilometres from Daly Waters. Let's just go in a creek. This is on the top of a rise, and there's table, shelter, water, which is probably not suitable for drinking. Little table and chairs there. Come out of our camp from last night and we're on top of a hill. That's the view ahead of us. They give us a warning that it's a rough surface, but the actual fact is almost different to the rest of the road anyway. A bit of a cross breeze though, definitely, if you come out of that pass. To the left goes to Ubirr up via Lemon Bight and is part of the Savannah Way, the dirt section from Ubirr down to here. And we're 2 kilometres out of Cape Crawford. The countryside's been flat up until now, and then all of a sudden we're in hilly type country. This is Cape Crawford. Borroloola is our next port of call. It's 110 kilometres up the road. Cruising along minding our own business, and the pedestrians decide they're going to cross the road. I'll bungle them on the left hand side. There's some blue buggers up here, off the road, give them right away. We've just passed the McArthur River mine, and there is signal out here. So around the McArthur River mine area, you've got signal. We're coming up to the entry into the Caravanini National Park, or Conservation Reserve. No camping in here. Just outside the gate on the southern side, we did notice decent sized scrape area, if you like. This is Caravanini Nature Reserve, and we've just done the walk to the lookout, which is 300 metres from the bottom, but I think it takes a bit longer than that to get here. It's looking back across towards the rock face, and this is some of the surrounding countryside. And to the east. And that's the waterhole down there along the bottom. In amongst all those trees. Within 20 kilometres of Borroloola, and it's Bitumen Road. Boy, it must be getting you ready for the dirt section between Borroloola and Burketown, because it's as rough as guts, it really is. A lot of trucks use it, I guess, but that's not the point. The fact is it's rough. Borroloola to the left, straight on to the Queensland border. Borroloola is located on the Macarthur River, about 50 kilometres upstream from the Gulf of Carpentaria. It has a population of around 780, including about 580 Indigenous people. It lies in the traditional country of the Yanyuwa people, on the coastal plain between the Barkly Tablelands and the Gulf of Carpentaria.
There's a survey.
$1.85 for diesel.
What was the other one?
$1.91 the other end. I don't know what the one in the middle is. So I'm going to fill up the fuel. I'm going to go through the other way.
Oh, there's diesel.
In the middle.
Yeah.
No license plates in the car. This is the school. Oh, it looks decent.
It's nice, isn't it?
The rivers and coastal areas are host to barramundi, earning Borroloola a reputation among sports fishermen. They are also populated by the saltwater crocodile. Just over 40 kilometres from Borroloola is the King Ash Bay Fishing Club, also situated on the Macarthur River. A largely self-contained village houses a small permanent population during the wet season, but numbers swell as mostly retired and semi-retired tourists arrive in April and May to enjoy the mild, dry season weather. The Fishing Classic competition, held over the Easter weekend each year, weather and road access permitting, marks the end of the wet season.
Borroloola in two parts. When you first come into town, you come past this section we're coming to now for a bit, and we're actually going out of town at the moment, the way we're travelling. Caravan parks on the left hand side there. There's a Carpentaria grill up here on the right. Off there by the airport, and there's a service station on this side of the road as well. Don't mess with these blokes out here, you get right off the road and the bitumen themselves. Just a few kilometres from Cape Crawford on the return from Borroloola.
Cape Crawford is a remote stop at the junction of the Carpentaria Highway and Tablelands Highway. Despite the first part of its name, Cape Crawford is situated a good 200 kilometres from the ocean. Lindsay Crawford was the drover who discovered a spectacular formation known as the Lost City in the nearby Abner Ranges in 1880. The Lost City covers an area of about 8 square kilometres and is dotted with towering sandstone formations and is accessible only by helicopter. The famous Heartbreak Hotel was unfortunately closed at the time of our visit.
So we leave Cape Crawford and now heading down towards Barclay Homestead, about 370 odd kilometres away. Warning that there's no fuel for 375 kilometres. Having realised the price of fuel at Cape Crawford, we checked the price at Borroloola and thought, well, we'll go on up there and we'll actually fuel it up there and then top up back here. This is what we've done. The countryside up here near Cape Crawford is fairly hilly compared to most of the countryside around the place. The MacArthur River runs to the east of us, on the left hand side of the road, and because it has many channels in flood time, of course all becomes virtually one big river.
Beautiful.
Isn't that lovely?
Very nice.
This is just 10 kilometres out of Cape Crawford. Like that, it's dead flat. Back to grassland, trees, floodplain. And then more hills, and we're still only 21 kilometres out of Cape Crawford. Glorious country through here. Well, if you're into road day-outs and things, this is definitely the road to be on. She's up back in the wrong go, I think. That's for sure. The authorities obviously haven't spent a lot of money on getting this road up to scratch. And looking by the amount of patch-up work on it, I'd suggest that maybe it's not due for it anytime soon.
get onto the plains part of this road, this area, the tableland. We're currently 60 kilometres out of Cape Crawford. Over the top of a hill every now and again, I need to see what the countryside's like in front of you. The river's bouncing up and down on the screen. This section of road along here is the overtaking lane. It's a 2-lane road and gives you an opportunity to overtake. The road itself is a development road, which basically means it's a gravel road with a bitumen strip down the middle. The only problem with the overtaking lane is the fact that you meet most of the traffic on the development road, not on the overtaking lane. Go figure. And it's reasonably smooth. And all the good things come to an end. As always, overtaking lane, no traffic. Back on the Bucking Bronco Road again. Case in point, we're about 2 kilometres off the overtaking lane. We get someone coming the other way. Since the overtaking lane, the road has been a lot smoother. Change in road conditions again almost as soon as you reach the Walhalla station turn off, and all of a sudden the road goes all crappy again. And now just flat grassland. Nothing. Practically no trees. Dead flat. This is the Barclay tableland and it's 239 metres above sea level. So when you look around you, you have hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of acres, hectares of nothing. Absolute nothing. Animals can be anywhere. And they're standing on the road.
Not a lot of grass.
Yeah, we're not already going to be honest. Hang on.
Don't mess with me arm, my big boy.
We'll walk out in front of me, but not probably left. Intersection of the Barclay stock route. Barclay stock route goes off to the right, or to the west. Happen occasionally that the Savannah Way gets wet and flooded and therefore is unpassable. This is a bypass that is used, can be used. It's called the Calvert Road. It's an alternative road. Takes you through Calvert Hills. Takes you to the Calvert Hills station. 204 Barclay Highway. This is the Rankin Highway going off to the left. It's an alternative to the Barclay Highway apparently.
So Burnett Downs is about 170 kilometres or thereabouts from Barkly Roadhouse. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's a race course out here. And there's an intersection here on the road. Right to Burnett Downs the station, left to where the race course is. It all happens in the outback. I find this rather amusing. You can see for 1,000 miles, within 50 metres of a bend, they put a sign saying there's a bend. We're about 100 kilometres away from Barkly Roadhouse.
The Barkly tableland is a rolling plain of grassland which runs from the eastern part of the Northern Territory into Western Queensland. The dominant flora of the tableland is Mitchell grass, which is hardy with long roots, so it is well adapted to dry soils and periods of drought. The grasslands support other distinctive plants alongside the grasses, but there are no areas of thick woodland, only acacia trees scattered across the plain. The grasslands are mostly used for cattle grazing.
As we get closer to Barkly, it's interesting to note that as we came off the plain and into the treed area, the road suddenly became vastly better, and we've been able to skip along at around about the 80 kilometre an hour mark, whereas before that we were doing probably around about the 70, being thrown all over the place. 376 kilometres according to the signs on the road, and 382 according to my odometer. We have reached Barkly Homestead. And we're welcomed by a Willy Willy. Just at Barkly Roadhouse. The speed limit along here is 130, so I'm assuming that we're going to be on a reasonable road for the next day or so. Camberwell is our next stop that we're aiming for. 6 minutes past 9 and it's the 29th of August. We're about 2,000 kilometres ahead of where we thought we'd be at this point in time. But we're still starting to run now into the build-up towards the wet season, so it's going to be interesting the next month or so. And we're heading for the Queensland border.
Look at this one.
You may recall we passed the Rankin Road as a bypass. An alternative. Well, that was it, just coming out on the left-hand side. Back onto the main highway. And that's 165 kilometres from Barkly Homestead. The distance from the Tableland Highway to here was 222 kilometres. Feel as though you want to do that as an alternative bypass. Have the fuel to do so.
approaching the Avon Downs rest area. There's telephone facilities here. There's a toilet, believe it or not. And right opposite, there's a police station. 110 km/h road traffic signs. We're just within sight of the Queensland border at the moment. And here we are at the border. So we've just taken the photos, which is what we need to do, and then we'll travel on to Camberwell, which is just down the road. Immediately the traffic conditions change in that the speed limit is now no longer 130 kilometres an hour over the border. It's now 110 kilometres an hour, and we've just changed our time zone, so we're now 2 hours ahead of Western Australia. And this guy on a push bike is glad that he can go on this way, not the other way, because he's got a tailwind.
Well, two of them. Well, there's two of them.
It's a tandem, isn't it? Mm-hmm. This is Camberwell. Camberwell is a small town in northwestern Queensland, just 12 kilometres from the Northern Territory border. Local government's provided by the Mount Isa City Council, and the town is adjacent to the Georgina River and has a population of around 190. The initial town was gazetted in 1884. Within a couple of years, a post office was built, a police station in 1886, a provisional school in 1893, drilling of the town bore in 1897, and finally the arrival of electricity in 1952. The road through Camberwell to the Northern Territory was the inland defence route for World War II. This road was built by Army engineers and carried over 1,000 vehicles a day, and there are numerous historical sites marked along the road. The town was recognised in a song called simply Camberwell, which was written by Australian country musician Slim Dusty. Top end of town is a rest area. Swing of the Billy over there. Heading back from whence we came. Supermarket, post office, general store, other service station, and the pub. Unreal coffee and yummy meals, it says. We're going to go out and have a look at the Billabong. The road off to the left, and apparently we go through that.
Straight down.
Straight through. One Billabong there, and apparently there's a bumble of them as we go along, so we'll go and have a look and see what's up here. Right in the middle of our Billabong, couple of boulders. So we arrive at Mount Isa. Be aware that in the vast distances between Mataranka and Camberwell, that although designated camping areas were provided, there were no toilet facilities available for travellers other than in roadhouses or town, and no dump points other than a Borroloola. This was also pretty much the case between the WA border and Katherine.